there was a broader stroke that stood at the crutch when Satan was going to Eve and was going to Adam. That question is saying, did God say? Is it truly this? Are you so aligned that you don't think that he will mislead you? Did he give you the full facts, or is he holding something for you? See, he knows that if you do this, you'll be just like him. But the broader stroke behind the question was, Satan's plan on this was just to do just that. So not only would he exchange him now, not only would he isolate him, but he had to get man in a position that he can bump him away from the reverential awe, and he will look at God as common. He said, if I can get to the point where man no longer has that awe that lays him on the face, one that makes you run, something that stirs inside you, but if I can get you to the point that, you guys, why was it that, this came up during Torah Club, why was it the fact when the people when God told them on how to approach him in the temple, what type of sacrifices to bring, even at the mountain, when all the thunder and lightning come, he told them, says, don't let them even touch the mountain. He said, because of who he is. We read during Torah Club where it talked about when Ezra, Nehemiah, and Zechariah, when they brought the people back to repair the temple. As they repaired it, he said some of them wept when they seen the temple because they didn't think it was as great as it was the one Solomon had. He says how the fervor and the excitement that they had when they came to the temple to be set free from captivity and come back and be able to labor in God's house. As Ezra said, it said that when they found the Torah scroll in the wall, Ezra the scribe says he got up and he read it before the people. And he said they called that event the long day. He said because as he read it, he said the people didn't move. They stood there and they wanted just to hear him. Because these people didn't understand. They had gone to captivity and born in captivity. They didn't understand how they got there. But when they heard God's voice, they said they wept. Within 50 years later, God sent, was it Hosea? Malachi. He sent Malachi back to admonish the people. He said because they were bringing stolen sacrifices to God, lame sacrifices to God, bruised, ill-fitted. They were coming to the temple and they were burning everything. They were doing so much disgraceful things that there's a fear that came over and says, there is no reverence. There's no awe. In fact, he says, if you think those things that you're doing are supposed to please me, give those things to an earthly governor and see what he says. Take him down the street and give him to that you're supposed to be honoring the governor, give them to him and see if he takes pleasure in them. And you bring them to me? Satan's plan to bump man from the reverential awe was in place. There's no longer no respect. God became common. See, subtle. We look at the fruit. We look at the apple. Yeah, when Eve ate the apple, then there was a fall. What, there's something more. He's very subtle and very diabolical with this attack. His strategy was to get us from the point whereas we no longer have a fear of God. That was his strategy, was if I can get them to the point that they lose that awe. You know the opposite of this reverential word I call awe? Your awe. The opposite of that word, this is what Satan was taking us, is the word nabal. This word nabal has an English rendering that's easier to grasp. It means fool. We find that and Strong's, 50, 34, 36, both of them. You know what I thought was interesting? As I was reading this, I'm thinking, Nabal, he says that's the opposite of what God of this reverential awe that Solomon says. It's beginning. And I'm looking at this, I says, wow, but that looked kind of familiar. I look back and I find out that's what it was too. That's the name of Abigail's husband. Yeah, the same guy said, well, and if you read back on him, when she talks about him, when she calls him all these things, it's there. Tells David, don't pay no attention to the foolish guy. Because you know what that Nabal means? That Nabal means this. The word fool, it means to wilt or to wither. What do you mean to wilt or wither? It's like a deflated balloon or an empty water skin. In other words, what's life inside all puffed up? You say you're shrinking in your neck, and it's like you're, just all wilted, cowering. So that's what this word means. It also means to fall away. It also means to fail. God didn't want you to have the reverential awe. Didn't want us to experience reverential awe. He wanted to bump us from it, and he replaced it with a thought called Nabal. In other words, to wither away, to fail. It also means wickedness, or you get the word evil. This word Nabal also means to despise. That's why it says a fool despises knowledge. He despises insight, wisdom. This word Nabal also means to be a disgrace. That's why we get that scripture where it says, only a fool will say in his heart, there is no God. He's come to a point where he's wilted, he's faded, he's despised. Atheists come from this mindset. Agnostics come from this mindset. You get to the point, man gets filled himself, and he says they become fools. God calls them fools, or Nabal. This was Satan's goal in the fall, and that was to get man to lose the fear or the awe of God. But then the thought says, wow, if that was the plan, it says, I want what God did to try to gain that. This covenant is about protection. Sneak peek a little bit further down to what God's doing within our covenants. But God covenantally protected man from what Satan's plan was. How did he do that? He did it through the cross, which is what Yeshua went back when he tried to say to redeem. What do you mean? See, that's how come the new birth is so critical when we are born again, when we come back in line. Because the enemy has got to a point where there's no longer no reverence or until you come into a saving knowledge. What do you mean a new birth? What does it do? It restores the awe and come back into the knowledge. And the more I study, the more I learn of him, I become more fearful, more reverent, because my spirit has been opened to them. So in the fall, when Satan tried to be so subtle and slipped us away, even to get Adam isolated and to attack him, God still had the plan. But we'll talk more on that when we get into the renewed covenant. But he said that's what Yeshua did. Restore the awe. Okay, so let's wrap this up. Let's take this away. After we've gone through a whole study of all the Adamic covenant, and so we've been studying along, what do we take away from that Adamic covenant? What is the knowledge? What is the things we should take away from this study as we prepare our hearts to go into the next? Well, as we prepare for that, There's an incredible thing that Yeshua did. Over in John 17:15, Yeshua prayed a very powerful and insightful prayer. And what did he say in that prayer? He says, Father, I don't ask you to take them out of the world. Don't take them out. He says, in all the midst of this, it seemed like it'd be so easy. Yeshua says, I'm leaving, they're going to be leaving. There's a lot of hard times coming up. But why would Yeshua look at them and try and say, but God, I'm praying, not for them, that you don't take them out. He said, but I want you to pray, but he's praying that you protect them from the evil one or from the evil. Powerful prayer. He says, protect them from the evil. What is that word evil? You take and render that word evil, and the word comes back, protect them from the Nabal. Protect them from the fact on how they'll push you away and you'll lose the reverence of who you are. Powerful word. That evil, or Satan. You know, as we wrap this up, we should come back to the first rule of thought that said man's purpose and what God did to him as he created him. He says, man was given the authority to rule the earth. But that's when I see that and I read that, it makes me think of that string example I talked about on my house. You guys remember that story? We need to know our rights. I spoke in terms about living in a house in Perry in which my parents bought the property, built the house. Really encapsulated the story. Bought the property, built the house, moved to Des Moines, and gave the house to my grandparents. That we, as this large family, would always go back to Perry and play at the grandparents' house. And so we go back there, and we were just rambunctious kids. You know, you get a bunch of kids running across the grass, you can kill everything moving. So Grandma always had dirt around her house, no grass. And our neighbor had lush green grass that he didn't want none of us rambunctious kids to touch. So he put a string across the yard, letting us know, you guys stay on that side, and I'll stay on this side. And so in that, he was exalted, he was haughty. My grandmother was limited as to what kind of garden she can grow because she didn't have that much space. And then even to the point where this guy would come out and he'd sit on this patio that's right on the side of that with all that green grass, and they'd have all his friends over laughing at all this little trashy kids sitting out in the yard, and they would throw their bones at us. When they'd be eating the barbecue ribs, and they would throw bones over the other side of the string because we were just rambunctious, trashy kids. And we all my family kind of grew up with that. And when my grandmother died, when we were still living in Des Moines, and the house just sat there. Well, when Anita was pregnant with Melissa, I was always desirous. We needed more space. I was living in a one-bedroom duplex. Duplex? It used to be a big apartment. A house that was all broken up, but we had this whole lower level. But we needed another bedroom, so I moved back to Perry into that house. And one of my dreams is always to have a little picket fence around my yard. And I wanted to shovel snow and be like Leave It to Beaver and have little flowers growing up from the fence and everything like this. Well, I bought the fence and everything. I got the house, and I'm going to be able to cut my own grass and everything. So before I can lay the fence down, the city told me I had to get it surveyed to make sure I keep my fence 3 foot back from my property line. Long and short of it, I go to have it surveyed, and when I went to do the survey, I'm walking with the surveyor guy. He's up one end, I'm holding the stick. We get down, we start about 2 blocks from the house, and we're going by. He's telling me to move back and move over here, and he's finding every spike where every lot was that. I come down to my house, down to my corner. I turn the corner, and now he says, okay, now he had to start way up here and line up everything, and now he's getting to my space. Now as I get to my space, he's telling me to back up. Well, the guy that was throwing the bones has sold that house, moved across the street to another place. And these people had, they had a little dog house and everything out there. But anyway, he's thinking, as I'm moving back, I see the guy get up, because the surveyor kept saying, move back. And I'm backing up. And I'm sitting here, back up some more. And now I'm right at my property line. I can see where the string was at. So I was about ready to go ahead and stick my spike down where the property line was at. He says, back up some more. So I'm backing up some more. Back up some more. And about right now, my mouth is dropping like this. Because what I turned out to find out was the neighbor comes over and he's trying to tell me, he said, if you stop him where he's at, I'll give you the lot on the other side. In other words, the scam was over. Where the string was at was my property all along. And I was living on the other side of the string. And God's saying, when God showed me that, I was just stunned. Even when I told my family, none of us had thought about having the property surveyed. Grandma couldn't afford it. But when I went back in that survey, the truth came out. And what that showed was that what God is doing to us now. He says, we don't know our rights. And so the enemy can do anything he wants with us. He can have us bump us off so we can lose our reverential awe. He can have us live in a different way, live in fear to manipulate how we approach God. But in the beginning, God says that he gave man, not the enemy, the rule over earth. And the truth is, that command has never been rescinded. It's a fact, it's a truth. God made us rulers of earth, and he hasn't taken it back. In fact, when he talked about making us rulers, in it, the way he said it, he says, I have given you dominion, to have dominion over the earth. That's what I call us. That's the truth. That's the point that he pulls up. And as we went through our lesson, we studied to understand that word dominion meant supreme authority. When God breathed into us, he gave us the highest authority that came from him, not something that was delegated. He breathed into man, given the authority to have dominion and rule, supreme rule over earth. That's what Satan wanted. That's what he had to try to get with his beguilement, and to get us to bump us off course to what God originally intended. So, in essence, I think there's 2 points we should come out here with the Adamic covenant with. The first point is this. We learn that when God breathed into us and gave us authority, we were to partner with God as we walk with him and to bring his kingdom rule on earth. God is sovereign, he's all-powerful, he's all-knowledgeable, but he's given us authority. So between authority and sovereignty, together between the same rule, God says, let the will that's been done in heaven be done on earth. I created man so that man can have rule, so that we can walk aligned with him, which is what Adam was doing, and to rule in the seen realm. That piece is what the Adamic covenant is about. God protected Adam for the rights that he'd given him. But if we walk with anything else, if I want to be sure of anything else, I know that as I walk on earth, not as lost, not as a foreigner, not as someone who's just visited, someone who doesn't understand what's going on here, he says we are a partner with him to bring kingdom rule on earth. And secondly, we should take this away. When God left us, when Yeshua says, Father, don't take them out of the world, but leave them. I pray that you don't take them out, but you leave them and you protect them from the evil. As covenant people of God, with all the things that's taking place around us, the enemy would love to have a field day and continue to just run rampant. And it would be very easy for us to feel like God would have us to hunker down and take refuge. Maybe go to some monastery, live out in the desert, run and hide. Because I can't handle all the things that's coming at me. But that's not what God would have us to do. God says, Yeshua prayed, and he says, I left you here to be effective within this world. What? He said, I want you to be nation changers. God has given us a responsibility to continue to be effective, to have an impact. He's left us here that we can change nations, people, rule this earth, have dominion, and operate as he operates. Once I align myself with the sovereign, miraculous God, and I give him the awe, the reverence that's due, I can walk successfully on earth. See, God gave me rule. He kept ownership. For the earth is his and the fullness thereof. He allowed me to dominate. He said the heavens is his throne. The earth is his footstool. But he says, I've chosen you, man, not to walk down and let the prince of the power of the air have dominion, have rule. He says, resist the devil. Submit yourself to God. Come back in perfect alignment. Resist him, and he will flee. God says your charge on earth is rather than hunker down, flee, stand firm. Fear not. Walk at all. As Yeshua said, and walk as the second Adam. For he's given us dominion here. See, once you start coming to that knowledge, I find myself getting realigned, I can become with a David mindset. See, as he walked out in the field, everyone's seen in the natural the bigness of Goliath. But in David's eyes, he was seeing the bigness of God. Because he looked at Goliath as he walked out there, and what did he tell him? Who's this uncircumcised? In other words, who's this guy who's not even in covenant? Who's this guy who's filled with Nabal? You blaspheme my God and you speak with irreverence. You're in a fallen condition, brokenness, full of wickedness and sin. Who is this guy that you, the covenant people, who stand before the God who made all the earth and the fullness thereof, who gave us dominion and told us to have rule? He said that he's walking before us and he will destroy every enemy before us. How dare he, Nabal, try to take the place of your awe? So he says, who is he? He says, you coming at me with things made from God's earth. Spears, stones, things you built up. God can melt those things in the air before they even come to me. You come at me with a spear and a sword, I come at you in the very breath and the name of God. That's what he's told him. See, so what the enemy does today and right now, he's trying to elicit fear. If he can shake you from the thought that if you don't know your rights, you don't know God, you act like you're teeny-weeny, little guys. See, they went into that promised land, and Tron says, we've seen the Nephilim there. We've seen the giants. We're like grasshoppers to them. And God kept saying, don't fear them. I've already given them to you. Yeah, but God, they're like this. Grapes are like this. Everything's huge. God, we're just teeny-weeny. He says, you're looking through fallen eyes. After the fall, you should see what Adam's seen before the fall. God down says, don't be afraid of them. You know, everything from your employer to your student to your kids to your husband to your wife to your family to everything. People can try to intimidate and make you fearful. But God says, fear not. If I understand him. So as more as I read about him, the more I study about him, the more I understand, and I get that all about him. It's not. I start to understand that it's not about me. It's not by power nor by might, but it's by his Spirit, saith God. I've watched things in which the doctors have told me over and over that what can and can't be, according to their prognosis. But see, they give me words because I've watched the guy, I understand and have the awe of the one who made the scalpel, who made the film, who made the x-ray, who has all I know the one who made me from the beginning. So they can give me all the facts, and I'm not belittling the facts. I love the analogy when the Torah says, they stand before me because they come out of college, they all have all the degrees. And I'm not belittling it. But I heard Miles say one time, I thought it was excellent. He said, you know what a degree is? It means out of all there is to know about that area, you know this much degree. There's more about things that you don't even know, but you've learned a degree of it to get a piece of paper. I know the one who made the paper and knows all things. So in doing so, God says, especially as Adamic, covenant-believing people, God says, restore the awe. Understand who I am. Fear not. For I am God. Yahweh. Amen? Amen. Amen. Amen.